Well, it bugs me the most when people screw up peer review is when they don't follow the directions. When I have it laid out and there's number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and I want you to do those 4 things, and the student doesn't do it, it's not very useful.
No.
Yeah, well, and good and bad is what most of us kind of revert to, and nobody's willing to say anything's bad, and that wouldn't be useful either. That's vague.
Right.
But to tell someone that they have a trend of sentence problems or something like that, then we're getting somewhere.
Exactly.
If you tell people, you need to quit writing sentence fragments, then that's something that can be corrected. Or if you tell someone you need more action verbs, then that's something you can actually work on.
Mm-hmm.
But to just say something, oh, that looks good, that's mostly what I see in peer reviews is that looks good. A social thing, it's a technical thing. It's a nuts and bolts thing.
Right.
And there's no judgment in talking nuts and bolts. So if you go in and you talk about sentences, or you talk about action verbs, or you talk about colorful language or dialogue or whatever it is that someone's using, then you're not saying something is good or bad. You're just saying what it is.
Exactly.
And working on that technical aspect.
What can we say to them, to those people who just do that, who are just circling possible spelling errors, who are putting in commas? I mean, how do we get them to jump from being a proofreader to looking at the whole thing?
Well, what I usually do there is raise the specter of the English teachers from the past, and I say, don't be the English teacher from 7th grade who red inked your paper to someone else. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what people are afraid of. They think that getting specific means diving into the grammar.
Right.
And what we're trying to do is get specific about things like organization, the development, the details that are used, something like action verbs. I've used that example already. Right. Those are the types of things we're looking for. And the grammar is a bonus. If you help your friend proofread their paper, that's great. But
are they getting their point across?
Yeah, I mean, if you red ink something too much, then all somebody sees is the red ink. And I think students know that from experience because they've been there. Yeah. They've had teachers do it to them. So, my advice would be don't be a teacher, but be specific.
Okay, titles. So when I look at your paper, one thing I will look at is the title. Is it interesting? And when you're peer reviewing, you should look at each other's titles as well, because that gets us interested in wanting to read the darn thing. So I thought I would take some books off my bookcase. 75 short masterpieces. Kind of interesting, at least it tells us exactly how many, right? But, how about this one? Poetry comics. Even without the weird Shakespeare faces, sounds interesting. How can poetry be comical? My last example just has a cow on it. He's actually listening to an iPod, and the book's called Acting Out Culture. Now I know students don't love the fact that these books look really thick, but at least it sounds cool. Makes me want to look inside of it, right? That's what your paper should do. And when you're looking at your classmates' papers and their titles, that first paragraph in that title, make it interesting. Make us want to read it. So that's our first thing that we should look at when we give feedback to one another during peer review. Okay, the next thing we're going to look at is organization. And I just want to show you a visual display of unorganized chaos. This classroom is not organized. Do you want your paper to look like this? Here is an organized classroom, with music in the background even. This is what your paper should look like. It should make sense. There should be flow in between each section, no chaos.